Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So anyway, this is a part of a Startup Grind tradition. I'd like to ask everyone to stand up.
It's hard to do in these chairs.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'd like to everyone to. This is Ryan Montoya, Senior Vice President of Technology with the Sacramento Kings, and please give him a round of applause. Thank you. So I just have to start up in saying that I think we are also happy that the Kings are staying here. So
Absolutely.
and you can take credit for that.
Yeah.
So the way this interview goes is that there's several sections. First, I'm going to ask you a little, so the audience gets to know you a little better. Where are you from, Ryan?
Before I do that, I definitely want to say thank you all for coming out. I heard the food was better and the drinks were better, so that may be a reason why you are all here. But I really appreciate being here, and specifically in this space, it's exciting. As I travel around the United States, visiting companies and talking to different people, and it is really exciting to come back to Sacramento and see this energy and the startup atmosphere here. And you guys are doing a great job. Sacramento Hacker Lab, Velocity Ventures. I've been to a lot of these places, and it's really amazing to see that all of the new technology, ideas, and innovation starting here in Sacramento. So, thank you guys.
And thanks for being here.
Yeah.
So where are you from?
So I'm from Colorado, and I'll probably answer a few of these
Sure.
questions in this question. So I'm from Colorado, and I was a consultant for the Kings for a few years, and I moved here recently, back in May. I became the Senior Vice President for Strategy, Innovation, and Technology.
Okay. And then, like when you're in Colorado, what did your parents do?
So my parents, my father was and I think this is where a lot of technology comes from.
Mm-hmm.
My father was a network technician for a phone company, and my mother was a teacher. So, but with my parents, I learned so much about hard work and just giving back to the community and specifically with my father, innovation. So.
Okay. So what did you want to do when you grow up? Is this, let's say fireman, but...
I had aspirations, and I still have aspirations to do a lot of things. So one thing that I would love to do at some point is to be a farmer or a rancher. And I'm a big fan of sustainable farming, and I actually, people ask me what type of cattle I'd be interested in, and there's these North Highland cattle that are so cute that I would probably just keep as pets.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one. The other thing is I've always thought that I'd be a senator at some point. I think that giving back to the community and serving in a public role is a noble thing to do.
Oh, it is.
So yeah.
You still can be.
I still can be.
You have good credentials.
If everything fails.
You get good credentials. All right, so you're almost like a public figure, and I say your bio is like really stealthy.
Yes.
In your bio, it said mentioned you worked with a few startups early on in your career. Can you talk about what?
So my parents bought me an Apple IIe in the 5th grade. And ever since then, I've been coding, learning about technology. I remember sending a note to Atari because I had a better way of perfecting what was the game, Frogger at the time. And so I sent, I came up with this letter. My parents took me to the post office. We sent it out. Never heard back. I've always been. What was the question again?
So
I got lost on Frogger.
Talking about your startups.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So always interested in technology. So been coding since the 5th grade, and then I think I built my first website in 1995. I was a student at Carnegie Mellon University, and I was sitting next to these guys who were building Lycos, which would later become, will lead to other big search engines. What I should have done at that time is I should have stayed working with those guys instead of graduating from college and going into politics. So my first job out of college was working for President Clinton. I traveled around the United States and around the world with him, and I had some amazing experiences. After that, I had the opportunity to work for Vice President Gore, John Edwards, and some other pretty fascinating figures. So after the 2000 elections, everything in life is always about transitions. At that time, I was no longer in politics. So I started a technology company. It was really a development company with a good friend of mine. And what we were doing at the time, he had an amazing skill to build websites. And the websites that he was building were far superior than anything I had seen. But he was building websites for dry cleaners, local dry cleaners. And I went to him and I said, I think if we work together, we can actually expand your business because you have an amazing skill set. So as you guys know, you're entrepreneurs. I just started calling people, and if they had a bad website, I would call them and I'd say, look, we can build you a better website. So that was my first company, and that first company grew from 3 people to, I think at the time we had about 20 people. We expanded our offices to Asia, and at the peak, we were building stuff for companies like iRiver, which was the precursor to the iPod, but it was Korean. It was like the #1 flash drive player in Korea. We were building sites for the second largest travel agency in Korea. We built sites at the time, even for NewYork.com. So we grew the business, and it was an amazing experience. So that was one of my first companies, and since then I've either advised or invested in many others. Some have been successful, others not so successful. But for good measurement, it's.
What happened to the first
really
company?
We ended up. We started another business out of it. That company became successful, and that we decided at a certain point that with technology and entrepreneurship, especially in the website business, you get better, you get bigger, you grow more clients, but now you need more office space. Now you need more developers. Now you need more everything. And so in terms of our ability to grow, we just felt that we could do other things with
You just end up selling it, or?
it just ended.
Oh, it just ended.
And it didn't end where it ended on a great note.
Okay.
Like we were both pretty successful with what we did.
So is there anything that any nuggets that you think you learned from that you could share with our audience here?
Sure. I think that anytime you're an entrepreneur, you have to be stubborn. You have to be persistent, and you always have to have the big picture. And I think if anything that we learned from that business was we had a whole bunch of big pictures, and we didn't necessarily focus. And I think we could have gone on and done other things. But every time we'd get a new client, we would say, because technology is so fascinating to us, we would get a client where they would be experimenting with RFID, then we would go into that business. Or we'd get a client focus on a particular sector, and we would go in that business. So I think if anything, it's figure out what that big picture is for whatever business you're creating, and have a monomaniacal focus on what that is. And I think you'll be successful.
Okay. And I have to say, to me, you actually have a dream job. You're doing technology for the Kings. How did you end up working for the Kings?
Yeah, so that's a great question. People always ask me that. I started off as a consultant for the Kings, and I primarily came in to focus on all the digital media strategy. And this stemmed from my working on the John Edwards campaign. This was 2004, 2005, I think. Yeah, right around there. And what I did for the John Edwards campaign, I was in charge of all the technology and in charge of all the digital media. So if you go back to 2004, 2005, 2006, internet as we know today did not exist. But what we were able to do for John Edwards was, and if you can go back and you can look, and everything that we did was a precursor to what Barack Obama did on his campaign. Right. Not to the full extent, but John Edwards was the first to use Twitter. It was pretty cool at the time. I'm talking to Laura right here because I know she's the #1 Twitter person in Sacramento.
Twitter queen.
I was emailing Biz Stone. And at the time, no one had any idea like this was going to be what it was. But I was emailing Biz Stone, and I said, Biz, all these people want to be our friend on Twitter, and we're getting a lot of coverage over this. How can we just automatically add our friends? So I have these emails with Biz Stone at the time. So John Edwards was the first to use Twitter. He was the first to use Facebook. He was the first to announce on YouTube. And it was always these first because for me at the time, it was just like I had this open field of doing whatever we could do with technology. And so, that through that experience, I came onto the Kings and I expanded their digital media presence. And so you can look at the Kings. We were the first to use Twitter. We were the first to use most of these cool and interesting platforms. So that's where I started as a consultant to the Kings.
And then they came back and took you on as the position.
Yeah. So during this transition of the new ownership group, I was around, and all of a sudden, if you look at our ownership group, Vivek Ranadive, Paul Jacobs, the chairman of Qualcomm, Andy Miller, who worked directly for Steve Jobs, Chris Kelly, who worked directly for Mark Zuckerberg. All of a sudden, all these people were coming into the mix who were speaking my same language. So for me, it was an amazing opportunity, and over time, I just started working with these guys every day, and we were able to create a bond and establish a relationship. And I said to myself, this is an amazing opportunity. What we're going to do in Sacramento with this arena and what we're doing for the community, I couldn't pass it up, so I decided to join the Kings.
Oh, welcome. We're happy to have you. So is your job similar to a typical CTO, or is it?
I think it's more broad. And I always think that, my job is a lot of times really to synthesize and to connect the dots. So it's not strictly in that vertical of tech, because it's really a global perspective of the entire organization. So it's, one day I'm working with the team with basketball sensors. The next day I'm trying to figure out how we are going to have the most connected, robust connectivity in our new arena. Another day I'm working with our digital team to figure out how we're going to expand our reach with many of the social networks. So I think it's often beyond what a typical CTO would do.
So is your role something that's unique to the Kings, or does like every NBA team have a similar role to you?
There are a few teams out there who have something similar, but I would imagine that other teams will eventually adopt this model.
So it's really it's a progressive.
It definitely makes sense.
Okay, and then I've seen a few things. Can you tell us a little more about NBA 3.0? That's kind of something that's been talked about with the Kings a lot.
Sure. So NBA 3.0 is a forward-looking philosophy that with a major objective and focus to make us the leading franchise of the 21st century. And there are 3 vectors to NBA 3.0. So the first vector is, and these are not lexically ordered, but the first vector in my mind, for me, is using cutting-edge technology to enhance the fan experience, right? And the rest of the groups at the Kings will argue with this. The second is using positive change, acting as an agent of change in the community. And then the third is expanding not only the Kings global brand, but the Sacramento global brand.
Okay. And so can you tell us about some of the, there's probably a ton of them, but maybe some of the initiatives you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. After I drink some water.
Okay.
Well, one of them's water. So we have several objectives with the new arena, and I'll speak specifically about technology. So we want our building to be pretty smart. And what does that mean? It means that the building will actually listen to you, it will speak to you, it will interact with you. And so to like really drill down on what that means, it means you're going to the game, you swipe down on your app that morning, and it will give you your traffic, it will give you the weather, it will give you the best route to access the arena. It will also tell you who among your friends will be at the arena. And so all of this is going on in the background, triggering a whole bunch of other events, so that when you get closer, we're talking with companies, for example, to help better manage not only traffic flow but parking spaces, and we're also working with the city to do this, so that you can drive to a location and you will know the best place to park.
Oh.
Right. As you enter the plaza, you'll walk through the plaza and all these different sensors that we have, and we're experimenting with a lot of this stuff in the current arena. You will walk through the plaza and it will trigger certain things. So for example, it may be that you've been to 3 of the last 4 games, and perhaps every time you come to the game, you order a hot dog and a certain beverage. So a couple things can happen. We can send a ticket rep to greet you, to give you that enhanced experience. Mm-hmm. But also, we can also, when you go and order your food and beverage, maybe on the 4th time or maybe on your birthday, you get that free hot dog. So it's always about elevating the customer experience. So that's the first part. So the building's smart. The second part is that we want to use data and insights to make your experience better. The more we know about you, the better we are able to tailor a custom experience for you. Right? The third is, and this is one of the most important things, is that we want to use technology to enhance your experience. And so you've seen some of the stuff that we've done over the course of last year. We used Google Glass. We used drones, and all of this is part of a grand plan to figure out how we can enhance your experience. How can we give you a different view from what you've seen? How can we bring you closer to the game? So when you hear that the Sacramento Kings are using drones, it's not just that we're out there doing cool and interesting things. We're actually trying to figure out how can we take this technology and bring it to the arena. The third piece is that we want to make your experience with us seamless, frictionless, and intuitive. And so that means you can have your ticket on your phone, mm-hmm. and you can walk through a turnstile without having to show anyone your ticket, and we'll know who you are, right? And finally, what we want to do is we want to just enhance that overall experience, and those are really what I'm working on here.
Okay. There's something you brought up, and I hadn't even thought about. So, are you actually using technology to help the performance of the players somehow?
Yes. So, we're doing some really interesting things. So, as you all know,
can you talk about it?
Yeah. Some of the stuff I can talk about, but and this one specifically. So Vivek is the founder mm-hmm. of TIPCO Software. TIPCO Software is everyone talks about big data. TIPCO has been doing smart data
right.
for many years. So we use a lot of their technology and Vivek will often call this our secret sauce. But we are using a lot of technology to understand team performance, and to bring in all these various inputs to figure out how that we can make our team better, more competitive, how we can prevent injuries, and so that's the type of stuff that we're doing.
So are you actually is it analyzing data, and then the coach will get
Yeah.
will get some sort of recommendation on X?
Yeah, so Vivek talks about the 2-second advantage, and the 2-second advantage really is having the right information at the right time is far more valuable than having that information 6 months from now. So lots of people are collecting data, and then they're analyzing it, and 3 months later they're determining that this is how we can make this improvement. With the technology platform that we're using via TIBCO, we are able to make those decisions immediately. So whether it's the sensors in the shoes or the sensors in the ball or the camera tracking technology, we're pulling in all of this data in real time so that our coaches are able to see instantly how to improve.
So they got a tablet or something. It's actually making recommendations on the fly.
Yeah, we use a bunch of different technology.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty cool. That you could tell me.
No, it's pretty exciting.
So actually, you answered a couple of questions. Do you work with Vivek often, or is he very involved?
Yes, Vivek is very involved. I've had a few experiences in my life where I've been around some really interesting people. Bill Clinton, Steve Jobs, and I'll put Vivek up there with those guys. And I often tell people, whenever I would travel with Bill Clinton, all I had to do was spend 30 minutes with him, and I would come back and I would be the smartest person in the room, just in terms of what he would say and just listening to the conversations. I had an opportunity to spend a couple times with Steve Jobs, and it was just amazing to see how we would walk in the back halls of a hotel, and he would stop and pause and look at photos of the staff employees, or he would notice something and say, what type of fuel cell is this? And it's just like Steve Jobs didn't really care about some of the other things that you think he'd care about. He was really curious, and that is one of the reasons why he was so successful. Same thing with Vivek. All you have to do is spend 15 minutes with him, and not only do you come back sounding super smart, but you're able to really understand where technology is going. I mean, it's like in college you would write these papers and such, and they'd always ask for primary sources. Vivek is a primary source.
Wow.
So I work. I don't get to work with Vivek as much as I would like. I would love to work with him every day, but I do get to work with people like Andy Miller. We talk weekly, and also Vivek's son, Andre Ranadive. Andre is, the fruit doesn't fall too far from the tree, and it's a real opportunity to work with Andre. I think he's early 20s, and he's a pretty impressive guy.
Oh, that's very cool. So I was actually we're heading to the stadium, and I was watching the thing on news, and you had like Chris Granger and Mayor Johnson, and you had just announced that the arena was going through. Were you guys like having contingencies planned? Like, was there thinking possibly that it wasn't going to come through, and you had some sort of contingency plan?
With people like Vivek in our leadership, there are no contingencies.
Okay.
Complete confidence that there was going to be an arena, and I don't know if many of you have been out by where the new arena is going to be, but if you look where we were 3 weeks ago compared to today, if you drive by, you can actually see from J Street to L Street. Like, these guys mean business. And so when they say they're going to build an arena, when they say they're going to keep the team in Sacramento, when they say that we're going to be an agent of change for the community, and we're going to be a global brand, and we're going to use cutting edge technology, they do it. So there's no contingency.
So was the planning of I think it was delayed because of all the court stuff, the actual breaking of ground. Will it still be able to make the is the construction still going to be scheduled to complete on? I think you wanted to debate the 2016 season or something.
Yes, we have a commitment, and I can commit to you that.
Here we go.
Well, it's not me. It's Vivek.
Sure.
It's our ownership group. It's our leadership team. And I mean, look at their actions, and that's all you need to know with this group.
All right, that's awesome. Oh, actually, now I'm going to take a step back. So some of the things you're working on, actually, I have to ask, with Bitcoin, and I was actually looking at it. The Kings are taking Bitcoin for like tickets and it looks like some silver items. Mm-hmm. Are you actually cashing in on the Bitcoin, or what are you doing with that Bitcoin?
So we have some Bitcoin that we've stored, that we've kept, but most of the Bitcoin it transacts instantly.
To cash?
Yep.
So are you getting like a 1-to-1? Is it you're getting dollar to?
Yeah, and it's pretty much right on track with whatever that amount is instantly.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I actually thought it was more of a gimmick,
No,
like a sales
and
thing.
we actually had a local Bitcoin group come to the arena for a game, and there was quite a few people. So there's lots of people interested in this digital currency.
And so the Bitcoin, it goes to some sort of Bitcoin market and and you actually convert it to U.S. cash.
Yeah, we use a processor to do it immediately.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah.
And then we talked a little bit about your mobile strategy. What do you think about using drones in terms of how you think about using drones? And
So it's always about giving the fans the enhanced experience, to give them that perspective. And so we've used the drones this season with our players, and there's some you can Google it on YouTube, or you can go to kings.com and you can see some of these videos. And it was pretty interesting what we were able to accomplish with the team. But also we have drones that fly around the site for the new arena weekly, and you can actually go to sacramentoesc.com and you can see that drone footage, and we're doing it every week.
Really?
And you can see so there's drones, and there's the time lapse cameras.
I gotta check that out. And then I actually have to ask: have you had a chance to check out Levi Stadium?
Yes, I've actually been there a few times, and I think that they're doing a great job, and I would expect that by next couple of games, everything will be functioning and working just right. I think they've got a smart team there, and it's a great place to go and study and learn and talk.
Anything that you see at Levi Stadium that you're going to try to bring to the Kings
I think that there will be givens for any new arena, and I think Levi has done a great job with the mobile food ordering.
Yeah.
I think they've done a great job with the line queuing, and I think they're doing a good job with the connectivity.
And when I actually did take a tour of it, and one of the big things that they were focused on was like sustainability. Is that something that's going to be with the new arena?
Yes, yeah. It's again, when you work with people like Vivek and Andy Miller and Paul Jacobs and Chris Kelly and all of our other ownership group, when they have a commitment to sustainability, you pretty guarantee that we will be one of the most sustainable buildings.
Oh, that's cool. And then actually, this is something more for the local community. Are there any opportunities for local entrepreneurs to maybe work with the Kings?
Absolutely. So this past season, we worked with the Sacramento Hacker Lab on a few projects. One of the projects was, and it continues to be, 3D printing. So they actually printed, I believe, they started to print the Slamson, a bobblehead, but they are actually printing the new arena. And so in my office, I actually have a few mock-ups of the new arena.
Cool.
Yeah. So we worked with them on that. We used a lot of their talent to help us with just testing and measuring our Wi-Fi in the current arena. They became our Wi-Fi coaches.
Oh, good.
So that's one example. But we are open and we embrace, as I started off, we embrace this community, and there will be some big things coming up that I would love to engage this community with.
All right. So if anybody here is interested in working with you, they just send you an email.
Absolutely.
All right.
It's really simple. My email address.
It's
Well, I would say it, but now
I won't say it
because I know this is going to be a global. I'm joking. It's Ryan@kings.com. Very simple.
No, you're gonna get the spam.
Yeah, that's great.
Or
That's great.
your assistant
That's
is
great.
gonna get the spam.
Yes.
So actually, at this point, I'm gonna open it up for questions, and then
Triplets. Okay. You talked about being the son of a teacher and an innovator. You talked about connecting the dots. You talked about community outreach, digital media. And so my question is really, not only as a businessman, but as a politician, how do you think we can fund teacher development so that we can raise the next generation to be not just at-home programmers, because I'm raising a whole bunch of at-home programmers, kids who code, but to get that into the school. So in the UK, they're doing it in the classrooms. Mm-hmm. How can we get that here in California, specifically in Sacramento County?
I stepped away from politics a while back, and it's really a hobby. So it would all be conjecture about how that is done. I do think that in terms of how I learn things, I learned by doing, and there a lot of times there were no manuals. I did not. When I first built my website, there was no manual to building a website. I just learned. When I was sitting in that lab at Carnegie Mellon University, next to all those guys building what would be the future of search, I was able to sit to them next to them and ask them questions. So I think apprenticeship programs are awesome. Their children should learn. One is either Asian, it's either Mandarin or Spanish. So pick one of those. But the second most important, and probably the first, is the ability to code. So there's lots of great programs out there, from Coder Dojo to the Girl Coding Program.
Girls Who Code.
Girls Who Code.
Code Academy.
Yeah, Code Academy, Khan Academy. There's a whole bunch of great things. So I think there's lots of opportunities there.
I just wanted to add, and Ryan, you might not know this, but the Sacramento Kings was a sponsor of SAC Hackapalooza, which was a hackathon for kids age, I think it was 12 through 18. So they helped get that started this summer at Hacker Lab, and I think they want to do a couple of those hackathons a year. So
Yeah.
The Kings are helping teaching kids to code.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Right here.
First of all, I have to ask, is that a calculator watch?
It is okay. It's the next Apple Watch. I've got it before everyone. No, it's a calculator watch. I'm very retro.
Yeah.
See, now everyone's going to go out and try to find a calculator watch, so you just started a trend.
Yeah, $15, Amazon.
Do you own stock in the company that produces
Absolutely,
that?
absolutely no
I was just wondering, as far as you're very well traveled in the technology circles, and you're in the realm now of bringing technology to the community and trying to enhance the community through the work that you're doing with the Kings. What can the Sacramento technology community do to attract? We're not the home of Fortune 500 companies, but what can we do as a community to enhance, to bring technology investment and attention to Sacramento?
So I think I mentioned at the start of this, I think Sacramento is ripe for technology and innovation, and I actually think that we have a real opportunity to be a major force when it comes to technology and innovation. So, and if you look at some of these cities where, like San Francisco or Palo Alto, where tech is coming and growing, there's a few key components, and a couple of it is education and those types of facilities. So great universities in the Sacramento region. We've got some great universities. UC Davis, Sacramento State. There's a lot of things that you can do through education. But I think we're doing a lot of things right. When I first came to Sacramento, I thought this community was awesome. I loved the location, I loved the weather, and I think that's part of it. So, and I think there's, we're ripe for a lot of growth in this sector, and I think, places like this that actually nourish it, and where you actually have lots of people who come together and share information, I think is key.
And Angela has a question.
Angela, probably the most difficult question.
She stumped her last person.
But you say your name and how old you are.
I am.
It's on. It's on.
My name is Angela Merrill, and I am 8. And my question is, how old do I have to be to have an internship in your technology department?
Well, Angela's awesome, and I think everyone should give her a round of applause because that's an amazing question. So you're 8 years old? That's awesome. So you're old enough. You've got my email address. Send me an email.
There you go.
How do you follow that up?
My name is Tina, and I'm 65 years old. Any other questions? Here.
Hi, you mentioned NBA 3.0. Can you elaborate a bit more on that, specifically the positive changes or positive fan experiences? What's being done or what some of the things are?
The using technology to enhance the fan experience? Yeah. So it is. We have so many assets within the organization, and there's technology that exists today that we're not sharing with our fans, and no particular reason. It's just that we've never had a way to deliver it. So we've got these cameras, for example, that track every movement of our players during a game. And so there's some fascinating things that, for example, it may be that if a certain player runs up and down a court a certain number of miles during a game, and that this is all technology and variables that we're tracking, perhaps if they run a certain number of miles, we win games. So what if we can show that to our fans, to show our fans that, on any given night, certain players run up and down the court. So that's one example of how we can use just the pure data of what we can show in digestible ways to our fans. The other is, as I mentioned, the cameras. So how awesome would it be if you can see a slam dunk from not one camera angle, but from 10 camera angles? How awesome would it be for a fan with their phone to direct the broadcast? And it's really just using a lot of times basic technology in new and innovative ways to enhance the fan experience.
So basketball will be 50, 60 days if we're lucky, right? That leaves another 300 days to make the arena, an asset for the community. So I imagine it'll be much of the requisite stuff planned, like music and Disney on Ice and all that kind of good stuff. So two-part question. One, is there anything new planned for the arena event-wise? I know it's a little ways off. And sort of two, How are all this really wonderful technology stuff going to affect, other types of entertainment other than basketball?
SacramentoESC.com, and you can see what we're not just building an arena, we're building an entertainment sports complex. And you can look at the facility and you can see where the arena will sit, and there's going to be this entire plaza. And the entire plaza is focused on the community aspect. And so, Vivek has this vision of having it as speaking of the fireside, having it a place where people can come and they can have these fireside moments. So I think there's a lot of exciting stuff that we will announce, but just think of that plaza. And if you've been to places like LA Live, you will understand the direction that we're going in with that.
So we could actually move the startup grind to the arena at some point?
Let's do it at the plaza. Yeah, let's do it in the plaza.
Thanks. My question goes back to a previous question that was asked about enhancing the fan experience, specifically through technology. And you mentioned using technology to enhance the performance of the team, and part, I think, of the experience, enhancing the fan experience is winning. So I wanted to ask, you talked about big data. Are the Kings trying to be the Moneyball of the NBA?
That's a good question.
Look, when you have a person like Vivek, you really don't try to be anything other than who you are as a team. And so everything that I've seen and everything that I see coming down the pike, I really think that not only in terms of the fan experience, but for the team itself, we're creating the blueprint for a lot of things. So when you have these innovators at the very top, they're charting their own path here.
It'd be like the Kings methodology or something.
Sure.
And I think
Okay, so I'm a fan, and there's two things that I want in the new arena. I want reliable Wi-Fi from the nosebleed seats, and I want a way to charge my phone at my seat. Am I going to get those things?
Absolutely. So, first part done. All right. Second part, we are currently testing and a lot of technology. And so, for example, at our experience center, you can see some of the technology, but we have the ability now to actually charge, to simply put your phone on the surface and it will charge. So we're experimenting with a lot of that stuff. But a lot of this will be based off cost, but also the good news is that if anyone's paying attention to Elon Musk and what he's doing, I am confident that in 2 years, 3 years, that you won't have to worry about charging your phone because the battery will last, significantly longer than it lasts today.
As an entrepreneur, we get a lot of advice like what you gave about being stubborn and sticking with your big picture, and then also, like you said, also having advisors and feedback and leaders that you learn from. How do you have your smart stubbornness and not stupid stubbornness? How do you balance that feedback and advice with your own vision?
Sometimes it's good to have both, but I've often relied on surrounding myself with the smartest people that I know. And I often do this in terms of even the people I hire. Not even, it's what I do. I hire the smartest people that are available. And the good news is that most people are much smarter than I am. So it's really easy to hire a bunch of these people. But you really have to get that advice from people around you, and I sometimes you may think that it's stupid stubbornness, but there's a lot of people who were stupid stubborn on the way to becoming successful. And here's the fascinating thing, that the technology and innovation, we're just at the forefront. Many people think that we're inundated with apps, and we're saturated with all the current technology, and that there is no place to innovate. 30 years from now, we will look back and we'll be like, you didn't have that back then, right? And so everything from holograms to virtual reality contact lenses to downloadable avatars, all this stuff is coming. And so for anyone who thinks that we've reached the peak of innovation, there's this whole world out there. So I would argue that it is okay to be stubborn, both smart and stupid, because there's so much opportunity.
And sometimes you just got to make mistakes and learn from it.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to make mistakes.
Tina, he's been very patient.
So I guess my question is really about the tipping point for the fan experience when it comes to this technology, because it sounds amazing. Like, nobody's going to say, don't show me the fastest way to get to the arena. Don't know my preferences where it comes to which concession stands I like to partake from. But the data points, the fear can always be there that that I use the restroom 3 times while I'm at the game. I don't want to necessarily see the pop-up that says, hey, these are the best restrooms right now for you to go visit, because we know you're about 2.5 beers in and it's time for you to go, right? So where, things like Bitcoin and glass and all these different things, I mean, they all come together to create an experience, but how do you guys know where that tipping point is, as far as acceptance and enhancing an experience, and then creating a creepy environment that people are kind of worried about?
The bottom sign up that says no creepiness around. For us, it's really about, that's what we do. We create experiences. We create unique experiences, and in some instances, we create magic for a lot of people, and that's the focus. It's not to bring in this creepiness factor. And in fact, we're all about privacy, and for a lot of the stuff you'll be able to opt in, and it's really how much you want to share with us. But at the end of the day, it's not to determine things like that. It's really to enhance your experience. How can we make it seamless for you? How can you go to the game and see things that you've never seen before? How can we deliver and provide that extreme value to you? So there's often a fine line with this stuff, but we have a commitment to ensure that it's all about your experience.
Okay, we take one more question. Oh yeah. So, what is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie. I've always been a fan of Pulp Fiction.
Wow.
It's a throwback, but it was one of the first movies where there are so many different storylines, and even to this day, and it's also it reflects on a lot of stuff that happens online. Like, you can, to this day, you can go and you can find out what was in that case, or what was said. So for me, it was just the various storylines.
Okay. Now I have one last question. Is there any help that we can provide as the SAC entrepreneur community?
Yeah, I think, well, one is bring ideas, right? we have a good group of people who work at the Kings, but we cannot harness all of the ideas. But so if we, you know, we had a great example this past season where we crowdsourced the draft. And I don't know if any of you guys heard about that, but we had a contest, and we went out and we asked people to help us with the draft. And we got hundreds of submissions, and we got some pretty impressive people. So we ended up bringing 5 to 10 of these people to help us pick the draft. And so we're huge fans of crowdsourcing.
Oh.
So if you have ideas, please bring them to me.
That's good.
So
that's very cool. So we do have some parting gifts here, and I'd like to thank you for, you know.
Laura has one question
Oh.
before we do this.
All right, Laura, just for you.
I might regret this.
Who's the player to watch this season?
One thing I learned about the NBA, it's about teamwork. So I'm in.
You are a politician.
Okay, I'll add mine that
Yes.
I want to watch is DeMarcus Cousins. This is going to be his year. He's not going to have a bunch of technicals, and he's really going to mature.
Yes.
You're not biased, are you, Laura? So anyway, we want to thank you for presenting to us. This is actually made by he's actually an Air Force veteran, and I wanted to thank you for coming and presenting to us.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.